John Peter Farnham AO is an English-born Australian pop singer. Farnham was a teen pop idol from 1964 to 1979, and has since forged a career as an adult contemporary singer. His career has mostly been as a solo artist, although he temporarily replaced Glenn Shorrock as lead singer of Little River Band during 1982–1985. In September 1986 his solo single, You're the Voice, peaked at number 1 on the Australian singles charts. The associated album, Whispering Jack, held the number 1 position for a total of 25 weeks, and is the highest-selling album in Australian history. Both the single and the album had top 10 success internationally, including number 1 in Sweden. Domestically, he has remained one of Australia's best-known performers with a career spanning over 45 years, and he is the only Australian artist to have a number 1 record in 5 consecutive decades with singles, Sadie in 1967, Raindrops Keep Fallin' on My Head in 1969–1970, and Age of Reason in 1988. And albums, Age of Reason, Chain Reaction in 1990, Then Again. In 1993, Anthology 1, Greatest Hits 1986 Euro 1997 in 1997, 33 in 2000 and The Last Time in 2002. Farnham has been recognised by honours and awards including 1987 Australian of the Year, 1996 Officer of the Order of Australia, and 19 ARIA Awards including his 2003 induction into the Hall of Fame. From 1969 he was voted by TV Week readers as the King of Pop for 5 consecutive years. Aside from his recording career, Farnham performed on stage with lead roles in Australian productions of Charlie Girl, Pippin and 1992's Jesus Christ Superstar. He starred in his own TV series and specials including It's Magic and Bobby Dazzler, and as a guest on numerous other popular shows such as Countdown and Hey Hey It's Saturday. Australian rock historian, Ian McFarlane described him as the most successful solo artist in the history of Australian rock and pop. Farnham has retained an affable sense of humour and his simple, unpretentious everyman charm, which also makes him one of the most respected celebrities in Australian entertainment history. Early life: John Peter Farnham was born in Dagenham, England, on July 1, 1949, to John Farnham SNR and Rose Pemberton. His sisters are Jean and Jacqueline, and his younger brother is Stephen. Farnham spent his first 10 years in England before his family emigrated to Australia in 1959 to live in Melbourne, Victoria. He attended school at Yarraman Park State School, Lindale Primary School and Lindale High School. During school holidays Farnham worked with a plumber and soon he began a plumbing apprenticeship and left school. In 1967 he took 2 years leave from his plumbing job to pursue his music career. Musical career: 1964 Euro 67, The Mavericks to Strings Unlimited. Johnny Farnham performed with local band The Mavericks on weekends, while still attending school, from 1964. The band had a 5-song repertoire. In late 1965 he was asked to join Strings Unlimited as a singer and they had a regular booking at a local hotel. In 1966, after making the state finals of the Hoadley's Battle at the Sounds, they recorded a 3-track demo tape with Farnham on vocals, Stuart Mayle on lead guitar, Barry Roy on rhythm guitar, Mike Fonanda on keyboards and Peter Foggy on drums. On April 29, 1967, Strings Unlimited performed as a backing band for pop singer Bev Harrell and Kohuna. Harrell's boyfriend-manager, Daryl Samble, was impressed with Farnham's vocals and offered to become his manager. Initially performing in Samble's hometown of Adelaide, Farnham recorded an advertising jingle Susan Jones for Ansett ANA and was offered a solo record contract with EMI. 1967 Euro 79, Teen Pop Idol. Farnham's first commercially successful recording was a novelty song entitled Sadie. Samble had disliked it as the lyrics were so persistent. However, EMI's in-house producer, David Mackay, insisted and so the single was released in November 1967. The B-side, In My Room, was written by Farnham. By arrangement with Samble, Melbourne radio DJ Stan Rofe pretended that he disliked Sadie before playing it. Rofe continued the ploy on TV's Uptight and viewers responded with calls to play the song. It hit number 1 on the Australian singles charts in January 1968 and remained there for 6 weeks. Selling 180,000 copies in Australia, Sadie was the highest-selling single by an Australian artist of the decade. Rofe was also a writer for Go Set, a teen-oriented pop magazine. Another writer for the magazine, Ian Mollingram, praised Farnham's efforts. Go Set ran a pop poll to determine the King of Pop, which was first won by Normie Rofe in 1967 and 1968. Farnham's 1968 singles were Underneath the Arches, and I Don't Want to Love You, each peaked at number 6. In 1969, Farnham released his album Everybody Ought to Sing a Song, which peaked at number 12 on the Australian albums charts. His next single was a cover of Harry Nilsson's One. Farnham's version peaked at number 4. When Television Guide, TV Week sponsored the King of Pop Awards, readers would forward their votes from coupons. Farnham won the Most Popular Male award and was crowned King of Pop 5 consecutive times from 1969 to 1973. He recorded a cover of the B.J. Thomas hit Raindrops Keep Fallin' on My Head, which became his second number 1 hit in December 1969 and remained at top spot for 7 weeks into January 1970. Farnham's next album, Looking Through a Tear, was released in July 1970 and peaked at number 11. Comic Conversations, his single from October, peaked at number 10. During 1971, Farnham teamed with Alison Durbin, who had been chosen as Most Popular Female Performer at the King of Pop Awards for 1969 and 1971. They released an album together in September and a single Baby, Without You in November, both peaked into the top 30 of their respective charts. As well as his singing career, Farnham performed in stage musicals starting with Dick Whittington and His Cat in 1971 and on television variety shows either as a guest performer or as a host. At 22, Farnham was appointed King of Moomba in 1972 with Melbourne paper, The Sun, describing him as a likeable English migrant, who is King of Pop, King of Kids, and today Johnny Farnham was King of Moomba. In 1972, Farnham also had a top 5 national hit with a cover version of the title track from the David Cassidy international hit Rock Me Baby. Another stage musical for Farnham was Charlie Girl in 1971. Gillian Billman was one of the dancers, and Farnham married her on April 18, 1973. Moodram announced their wedding plans in Go Set, but Samble denied the early reports, and, despite being best man at the wedding, was against Billman marrying Farnham. The clean-cut pop star had made several more albums and singles, but by the mid-1970s his recording career had begun to dwindle and he turned more to stage musicals and television. Farnham and Queen of Pop for 1972 and 1973, Colleen Hewitt, combined on the 1973 and 1974 stage musical, Pippin, and its associated show album released in 1974. Also in 1974, Farnham and Hewitt were co-hosts of It's Magic, a children's TV series on Channel 10. He became familiar to viewers of Countdown when hosting its first color transmission in early 1975 and introducing Skyhook's performance of Horror Movie. Relations with Samble became strained and in January 1976 they announced their split. Farnham first turned to Ken Brodziak, producer of Pippin, for his management during 1976 and 1978 and then to Danny Finley, Hewitt's then-husband, from 1978. Farnham starred in a situation comedy series Bobby Dazzler as the title character during 1977 and 1978, and narrated documentaries including Survival with Johnny Farnham. Farnham was in financial trouble with unpaid taxes and the collapse of a restaurant venture with Hewitt and Finley. Farnham's singing career was now confined to the cabaret circuit and stage musicals. In 1979 he changed his stage name to John Farnham. 1980-85, Little River Band era, Farnham had met Glenn Wheatley, who was bass guitarist of 1960s rock group The Masters Apprentices, when both acts were managed by Samble. Wheatley was now managing Little River Band and in 1980 Farnham signed with Wheatley. They decided his comeback single would be a reworking of The Beatles' Help, which was produced by LRB's Graham Goebel. It peaked at number 8. Farnham was utilizing a more adult contemporary pop style in the associated album, Uncovered, also produced by Goebel, peaked at number 20. The B-side of Help was another of Farnham's songwriting efforts, Jilly's song, co-written with Goebel. In recording the album, Farnham's studio band were guitarist Tommy Emmanuel, keyboardist Mal Logan, drummer Derek Pellicky and bass guitarist Barry Sullivan. They became his tour band until Logan and Pellicky returned to their LRB commitments and were replaced by Sam McNally and David Jones respectively. In 1980, Farnham also appeared in a TV series, Farnham and Byrne, with former Young Talent Time teen star and Queen of Pop Deborah Byrne. 3 other solo singles followed in 1981 but none charted into the top 50. In February 1982, after Glenn Shorrock had departed Little River Band, Farnham became their lead vocalist with recommendations by Goebel and Wheatley. Farnham had initially resisted the idea of joining LRB, but Wheatley convinced him that Shorrock approved of the replacement. This continued Farnham's move away from cabaret and into rock music. As Little River Band was a successful band prior to Farnham joining, it was a surprise that they found little initial success. With Farnham, Little River Band recorded 3 studio albums, which had modest success a year or not enough to pay back the advances the record company had provided. The first studio album, The Net, was already written and Farnham had no say in the songs, he just had to record his lead vocals. In the US, charting albums with Farnham's vocals were Greatest Hits, The Net and Playing to Win on Billboard Pop Albums chart Billboard 200. While charting singles were The Other Guy, We Too, You're Driving Me Out of My Mind, and Playing to Win. Farnham's biggest Australian hits with LRB were the 1982 single Down on the Border, which peaked at number 7, and The Net, which peaked at number 11 on the album's charts in 1983. During this time, Farnham started supplying vocal tracks for films including Savage Streets, The Slugger's Wife, and Fletch. He later continued with Rad and Voyage of the Rock Aliens. Justice for One was co-written by Farnham, for Savage Streets, and it was released as a solo single. Little River Band recorded a concert in Melbourne that aired in the United States on HBO. The concert video was only 1 hour long, and it highlighted some of the songs from The Net as well as reworked versions of Little River Band classics such as Cool Change, and Reminiscing. Please Don't Ask Me, a song written by Goebel, and a non-top 50 single for Farnham almost 3 years previously, was played during the Australian-themed opening of the show. Despite positive Australian and US reviews and responses, this performance has not yet been released on VHS or DVD. In an interview with Channel 7, Farnham stated, "I'll be better off leaving, rather than putting myself under pressure that I've created." Through this matter, it became apparent to the band that Farnham was intending on leaving, and Playing to Win's lead single Playing to Win, a song believed by all to be the band's return to success, then started having authorship disputes. According to Farnham, Playing to Win was about my frustration in the band, about wanting out, not wanting to be there anymore. There was a bit of infighting and we were doing it hard on the road. That's what inspired the song. As a result, Farnham's relationship with the band was further sullied. To date, the royalties for the song are meticulously divided with different shares to each of the song's contributors, including Goebel, Farnham, Stephen Hurston, David Hirschfelder and Wayne Nelson. By late 1985, LRB were in conflict again and Farnham left. In mid-1986, Little River Band released the third studio album, No Rains, but Farnham was already pursuing his solo career. 1986 Euro 97, peak solo years, You're the Voice, and Whispering Jack. Farnham had started collecting a song list for a future solo album while still in Little River Band. He finished his vocals for their album, No Rains, and left in late 1985. Farnham's first solo performances since 1981 were live shows with the John Farnham Band consisting of Brett Gast on lead guitar, Sam C. on guitar and Derek Pellicky, formerly of Little River Band, on drums. In early 1986, sound engineer Ross Fraser suggested to Farnham's manager Glenn Wheatley that it was time to start working on the solo album. Wheatley searched vainly for a producer and record label willing to work with Farnham, Fraser took on the producer role and weekly provided financial support after mortgaging his house. Whilst visiting a jazz club in the US, Farnham was mistakenly introduced as Jack Phantom, and when he subsequently provided a running commentary for a local pool game he named himself Whispering Jack Phantom after the pot-black commentator Whispering Ted Lowe. Farnham's work for the album, Whispering Jack, included expanding his song list with Fraser's advice. A Touch of Paradise was written by Gulliver Smith and Mondo Rock's Ross Wilson, while Pressure Down was provided by Harry Bogdanves. 2 weeks before the album was due to be recorded, a demo tape arrived from London with similar material as Pressure Down. Farnham and Fraser listened to the demo of You're the Voice, and knew they had found a once-in-a-lifetime song. Another song on offer was We Built This City, but Farnham knocked it back. It was later recorded by US band Starship. Initially, public interest in the rebranded former teen idol was difficult to cultivate, and radio stations refused to play Farnham's album. Things however started to change after Sydney radio station 2Day FM played its first single, You're the Voice, which was released in September 1986. Henceforth, radio stations began receiving requests for the song. Its television debut was on Hey Hey It's Saturday with Skyhook's Greg McKinch providing bass guitar. You're the Voice peaked at number 1 in Sweden and Australia, as well as being a top 10 hit in some European countries, number 3 in Switzerland, number 6 in the UK, and number 6 in Austria. The song was written by Andy Kunter, Keith Reid, Maggie Ryder and Chris Thompson. Whispering Jack, released in October, became the highest-selling album by an Australian act in Australia, at the time, and peaked at number 1 on the Australian album charts for a total of 25 weeks. As of 2006, it was 24 platinum, indicating sales of over 1.68 million units in Australia alone. The album was released internationally on RCA-BMG and peaked at number 1 in Sweden, number 3 in Austria, and top 20 in Norway. In August 1988 it returned to the Australian top 10. It also was the first music CD released in Australia. Other charting Australian singles were December's Pressure Down, which peaked at number 4, March 1987's Touch of Paradise, and October's Reasons. After the success of the album, Farnham followed with Jack's Back Tour. An initial itinerary of 11 performances was thought to be enough considering they were up against tours by Michael Jackson and Billy Joel, but after high ticket sales, it was extended by 8 more shows and use of larger venues. At that time, Jack's Back Tour was the highest-grossing tour by an Australian act. John Farnham Band now consisted of Gast on lead guitar, David Hirschfelder on keyboards, McKinch on bass and Angus Birchall on drums. Farnham won 6 of the inaugural 1987 ARIA Music Awards for Album of the Year, Single of the Year, Highest-Selling Album, Highest-Selling Single, Best Male Artist and Best Adult Contemporary Album. On July 19, 1987, TV series Countdown broadcast its last show, the 1986 Countdown Music and Video Awards, with Farnham winning the Best Album Award for Whispering Jack. In 1988, Australia's bicentennial year, Farnham was named 1987 Australian of the Year, although he was not yet naturalised. A hastily organised swearing-in occurred before the honour was bestowed. He was chosen due to his outstanding contribution to the Australian music industry over 20 years. Age of Reason and Chain Reaction. Farnham's July 1988 single, Age of Reason, which peaked at number 1 on the ARIA singles charts, was written by Johanna Piggott and Dragon member Todd Hunter. The album, Age of Reason, produced by Ross Fraser, debuted at number 1 in August and stayed on top for 8 weeks. It was the highest-selling album in Australia from 1988, and, as of 1997, it was 8 platinum, indicating sales of over 0.56 million units. Renewed interest in Whispering Jack returned it to the top 10 in August, nearly 2 years after its initial release. To date, Age of Reason remains Farnham's last number 1 Australian single. Other charting singles from this album were, Two Strong Hearts, which peaked at number 6, and Beyond the Call. Age of Reason had international success, peaking at number 4 in Sweden, and number 9 in Norway. At the 1988 ARIA Awards, Farnham won Best Male Artist, Best Adult Contemporary Album for Touch of Paradise, and the Outstanding Achievement Award. In March 1989, Farnham was in Moscow, USSR to promote Greenpeace album Rainbow Warriors, as part of an international ensemble including David Byrne, Peter Gabriel, Chrissy Hind, Annie Lennox, and The Edge. Farnham found time to record a duet with Danny Elgar, Communication, which peaked at number 13 in August 1989. It was recorded as part promotion for the Australian government's program to control the drug epidemic happening in the mid-80s entitled The Drug Offensive. The Drug Offensive logo can be seen attached to a television camera in the video clip made to promote the song. Chain Reaction, produced by Fraser, was released in October 1990, and also debuted at number 1 on the Australian album charts. It provided 3 top 10 hit singles, Chain Reaction in August, That's Freedom in September and Burn for You in December. Unlike the previous 2 albums, where most songs were written by outside writers, Chain Reaction saw Farnham write 9 of its 12 tracks with Fraser and keyboardist musical director David Hirschfelder. The sound was less electronic and more acoustic. It became the biggest-selling album in Australia for 1990, and was number 1 on the ARIA End-of-Year Album chart. At the 1991 ARIA Awards, Farnham won Best Male Artist, Song of the Year for Burn for You, and Highest-Selling Album for Chain Reaction. Full House to Anthology, Farnham's live album, released in November 1991, was Full House, produced by Ross Fraser and Farnham, which peaked at number 2 on the ARIA album charts. It contained concert material recorded from May 1987 to October 1990. Please Don't Ask was released as a single, which peaked into the top 30. At number 1 on the ARIA album charts was Jimmy Barnes' album, Soul Deep. It included a duet with Farnham, When Something Is Wrong with My Baby, which peaked at number 3 on the singles charts. In August 1992, Farnham joined the Australian production of Tim Rice Andrew Lloyd Webber's staged musical, Jesus Christ Superstar, in the title role of Jesus. Fellow cast members included, Angry Anderson as Herod, Kate Ceberano as Mary Magdalene, Russell Morris as Simon Zealots, John Stevens as Judas and John Waters as Pontius Pilate. The stage soundtrack, Jesus Christ Superstar. The album provided the single, Everything's Alright by Ceberano, Farnham and Stevens, which peaked at number 6 in September. Farnham released his next studio album, Then Again, in October 1993, produced by Fraser and Farnham, which peaked at number 1. Of its 4 singles only, Seemed Like a Good Idea reached the top 20. The album won Highest-Selling Album at the ARIA Awards in 1994. Farnham never really wanted to try his luck overseas even though he had offers. In a TV Week interview promoting the Romeo's Heart album, he said people had put pressure on him to live overseas but he had no intention of doing so. I don't want to go to America to live, he said. He went on to say the pressures for him to relocate come mainly from other people, but his manager, Glenn Wheatley, has never put this pressure on him. On Australia Day, January 26, 1996, Farnham was made an Officer of the Order of Australia, in recognition of service to the Australian music industry and to charitable and community organisations, particularly those relating to youth. His single, Have a Little Faith, in March peaked at number 3. The associated album, Romeo's Heart, produced by Fraser, was released in June and peaked at number 2. It won the Best Adult Contemporary Album at the ARIA Awards in 1996. Farnham collaborated with vocal group Human Nature to record Every Time You Cry, which peaked at number 3 on the singles charts in October 1997. Also in 1997 he released a series of 3 compilation albums, Anthology 1, Greatest Hits 1986 Euro 1997, Anthology 2, Classic Hits 1967 Euro 1985 and Anthology 3, Rarities, which all peaked in the top 20, with Anthology 1 reaching number 1. 1998 Euro 2000 Euro Dare to Dream, the main event with Olivia Newton-John and Anthony Warlow. For the main event tour during October Euro December 1998, Farnham performed with Olivia Newton-John and Anthony Warlow. The album highlights from the main event peaked at number 1 in December, sold for Platinum, and won Highest Selling Album at the 1999 ARIA Awards. The main event concert was broadcast on national TV and released on video. During April–May 1999, Farnham undertook the I Can't Believe He's 50 tour, supported by Merrill Bainbridge, Kate Ceberano, Human Nature, James Raine, Ross Wilson, and Nana Tsami, containing his son, Robert Farnham. Live at the Regent, recorded on July 1, 1999, was released in September and peaked at number 7. On December 21, Farnham performed a set for the Tour of Duty concert in Dili for the Australian troops serving with Inter-FET and East Timorese people. The concert also included James Blundell, Dili All-Stars, Gina Jeffries, The Living End, Kylie Minogue, Doc Neeson and the URMC Band. Tour of Duty was the first of Farnham's concerts to be webcast. For the 2000 Summer Olympics, Farnham and Newton-John performed Dare to Dream during the Parade of Nations at the opening ceremony. Broadcast of the ceremony was viewed by an estimated 3.5 billion people around the world. Farnham appeared as himself in the final episode of the Australian television series The Games. The Last Time to Tom Jones. On January 1, 2001, Farnham was awarded a Centenary Medal for outstanding service to Australian music, as part of Australia's celebration of a centenary of federation. In 2002, Farnham announced his decision to retire from full-scale national tours after his The Last Time tour. He would still perform in concerts and record a which commenced on November 6, 2002 and finished on June 15, 2003. In conjunction with the tour, The Last Time was released in October 2002, it peaked at number 1 and achieved 3 platinum sales. The Last Time tour was a country-wide concert tour, taking a circus-style tent to smaller towns and filling large entertainment venues in capital cities. It became the biggest grossing tour in Australian history. During July 2003, Farnham worked with Queen to produce a new version of We Will Rock You for the 2003 Rugby World Cup, released on his Greatest Hits album, One Voice. Media reports of Queen asking Farnham to join the band were subsequently denied by both Queen's Brian May and Farnham. Farnham was inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame on October 21 with a performance of You're the Voice. Farnham also won Best Adult Contemporary Album for The Last Time. 2002 Hall of Fame inductee was Olivia Newton-John, whilst in 2004 Little River Band was inducted. Combining with singer Tom Jones, Farnham undertook the Together in Concert series during 2004 with 10 shows in Perth, Sydney, Brisbane, and Melbourne. Duets started with That Driving Beat, and Mama Told Me Not to Come. Solos from Farnham were 1, Pressure Down, That's Freedom, Hearts on Fire, Playing to Win, Every Time You Cry, Man of the Hour, Age of Reason, and Burn for You. The pair did 5 duets to close the show. Sam and Dave's Hold On I'm Coming, Otis Redding's Try a Little Tenderness, Ray Charles' What Did I Say, Arthur Conley's Sweet Soul Music, and AC/DC's anthem, Long Way to the Top. The DVD release, Together in Concert John Farnham and Tom Jones, debuted at No. 1. Farnham's career resurrection following The Last Time has entered the Australian consciousness as a touchstone for others who are seen to return from a strongly declared retirement. The announcement of the Farnham-Jones Together in Concert tour triggered an unsuccessful claim for damages from a fan, angry that The Last Time tour was not in fact Farnham's last, as purported in its marketing. Consumer watchdog the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission took no action following this complaint. Farnham made an appearance during the 2005 Melbourne Music Festival, raising funds for rebuilding after the 2004 Indian Ocean earthquake at the Tsunami Benefit Concert. I Remember When I Was Young, I Remember When I Was Young, Songs from the Great Australian Songbook was released in November 2005. It contains 13 covers of hits, written and performed by Australian artists. Which peaked at number 2 on the ARIA Albums charts. In February 2006, Farnham performed 4 shows at the Sydney Opera House, with the Sydney Symphony, followed by shows at the Victorian Arts Centre's Hammer Hall, Melbourne. These shows were sponsored by dairy farmers, and a percentage of revenue received from the I Remember When I Was Young concerts went to the Dairy Farmers Creating Greener Pastures program to help farmers and their communities. A 2006 DVD of Farnham entitled John Farnham with the Sydney Symphony Orchestra was released. It debuted at number 2 on the ARIA DVD charts and then peaked at number 1. John Farnham band members are Angus Birchall on drums, Bob Cowison on trumpet, Lachlan Davidson on saxophone, Lisa Edwards on backing vocals, Lindsay Field on backing vocals, Stuart Fraser on guitar, Danielle Gahar on backing vocals, Brett Gast on guitar, Chong Lim on keyboards, musical director, Jordan Murray on trombone, Craig Newman on bass guitar, and Steve Williams on harmonica and saxophone. From February 18, Farnham embarked on a small Australian tour with Fleetwood Mac singer Stevie Nicks for a series of live shows. Both artists had equal billing, but unlike the Tom Jones shows, they did not sing together but rather individually. The same backup singers from the tour, however, were used by Stevie Nicks and John. On March 26, Farnham sang at the 2006 Commonwealth Games closing ceremony, in Melbourne, starting with his hit Age of Reason, followed by I Remember When I Was Young from his most recent studio album, Playing to Win from his Little River Band days, and finished with his anthem song, You're the Voice. The 20th anniversary of Whispering Jack in 2006 was marked by an enhanced commemorative re-release of the CD plus a DVD featuring an edited version of the tour that accompanied the album. The original album was the first CD made in Australia and, as of June 2008, remains the highest-selling album in Australia by an Australian act. Jack and the Acoustic Chapel Sessions. On May 27, 2009, Farnham announced a new concert tour for September and October, John Farnham AO Live by Demand. A new studio album, Jack, was released by Sony BMG on October 15, 2010. The album contains 11 tracks and is Farnham's first studio album in over 5 years. Jack features covers of compositions by Ray Charles, Curtis Mayfield and Percy Sledge. The release of Jack coincides with a run of indoor and outdoor performances, under the title of John Farnham Live, throughout October and November 2010. On June 8, 2011, it was announced that Farnham intended to embark on a nationwide tour of Australia throughout October and November 2011 to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the release of the Whispering Jack album. In addition to this, the Whispering Jack live video album was edited down by 20 minutes and re-released on DVD by Sony BMG. On September 30, 2011, Farnham released the Acoustic Chapel Sessions live album. The album was recorded in Melbourne in July 2011 at Chapel Off Chapel. The album was released as a CD and DVD 2-disc set by Sony BMG. The CD contains 11 previously released Farnham songs recorded acoustically, while the DVD includes 8 songs plus interviews with Farnham and the band as well as additional behind-the-scenes footage. On July 27, 2012, Farnham performed live for the Australian Olympic team in London during the lead-up to the 2012 Olympic Games. He performed a number of his best-known songs, including Playing to Win, Pressure Down, and You're the Voice. Flash mob events. In October 2012, Farnham flash mobs began appearing with groups of 10 impersonators singing the chorus to You're the Voice to unsuspecting members of the public. Dozens of videos of such events began to be uploaded to YouTube. It was originally unclear who was behind these events, but it is now known to have been car manufacturer Ford, as part of their Ford Sync advertising campaign. Personal life. Farnham married Gillian Billman, a dancer he met when performing the stage musical Charlie Girl, on April 18, 1973. They have 2 sons, Robert and James. Farnham is a supporter of the North Melbourne Football Club in the Australian Football League. Discography. Sadie, Everybody Ought to Sing a Song, Looking Through a Tear, Christmas Is. Johnny Farnham, Johnny, Together, Johnny Farnham Sings the Shows, Hits Magic and Rock and Roll, Johnny Farnham Sings Hits from the Movies, J.P. Farnham Sings, Uncovered, Whispering Jack, Age of Reason, Chain Reaction, Then Again. Romeo's Heart, 33, The Last Time, I Remember When I Was Young, Songs from the Great Australian Songbook, Jack, The Acoustic Chapel Sessions, Awards and Nominations. Farnham has won and been nominated for numerous Australian music and entertainment awards. These include 19 ARIA Awards from 49 nominations and induction into the Hall of Fame, Countdown Music and Video Awards, Mo Awards and TV Week magazine's King of Pop Awards and their Logie Awards. References. External links, official website, John Farnham at DMOZ, John Farnham at the National Film and Sound Archive, John Farnham and AUS Stage.